Hello and good afternoon and welcome to KAZ Radio TV. I am Tim White, the host of Unlocking the Power of You. We're going to have another fantastic
vision. If the board decides that they think that you're running the business wrong, you can actually be ousted out of your own business. Okay, so the LLC, you can be a single member, you can make all the decisions yourself. You don't have to worry about a board making the decisions or a board ousting you. Secondly, with a corporation, you have to have what's called a black book, where you have to document all of your decisions on the company. The board has to vote on it. It has to be written in the black book. And if something happens and you go to court and that black book is not up to date, then your case will be thrown out, even if you're the one suing the other person or the other party. So the bottom line with that is I recommend an LLC over a corporation all the time, because you have most of the same protections with the LLC. The other side of the coin with a corporation is, if you do something wrong and you've got board members, they can actually go after the board members that you have with your corporation if you have a lawsuit. So you want to make it so that you don't have that problem. You can have people that have a share of your LLC by percentage, and then they get what's called a K-1 at tax time, and that K-1 distributes how much money the LLC made. I would suggest that most people do like investors, if they're going to do that, where they bring somebody to the table that's going to invest in their business. And what they do is they find investors, the investors put money in, and then after they put the money in, they can either get dividends or they get a share of the business profits on a K-1.
Okay, so with what you're saying, now, you mentioned LLC a couple of times. Average person have no idea what an LLC is, so we have to define, for some of us who are not savvy, what LLC means.
LLC means Limited Liability Corporation.
Okay.
Or company.
Okay, and the benefits of that above the corporation is that with a corporation, they can come after you. With the LLC, they can't come after you personally.
Well, with the corporation, they can't come after you personally, but they can come after, if something that you did with the corporation, they can come after the board members also. And I suggest people not do a corporation.
Okay, so the greatest benefit then is don't do a corporation, do an LLC.
Right.
A sole proprietorship. You're the sole owner. You're the sole decision makers, so that helps. For those out here who are watching and listening, it's important for you to know that you can start a business.
Right.
But the best way to start a business, first off, you need to find somebody who knows business.
Absolutely.
You don't just want to jump out there. Okay, Bill, so I know you have a business. You've been in business for a while. And as you mentioned before we came on the air, it's important for us, if you're in business, be around people who are business-like or business-minded. And that helps a lot.
That helps tremendous. That means you can learn from them, but you always got to give back too. Everything cannot ever be one-sided. So always bring something to the table. Whatever you're doing, learn it. Learn it the best way you can, the most things you can, and relay it to the person that you're learning from. And always bring some benefit to it. Don't ever make something be one-sided. The good thing is I do have an LLC now, but you got to constantly be growing your business. You just don't jump out there. You got to find out what you like. And you got to do what you like. You got to be passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an idea and you love that idea, whether it be cars, whether it be, for me, promotional products, I love logos on everything. I be wearing logos anyway if I wasn't in this industry. But that's just me, because that's what I love. It stems back from the Cosby Show, when Bill Cosby wore those college logos every
week.
I love that stuff. And I still wear college logos now. But you have to fall in love with what you're going to invest in your business in. So, therefore, when you're working at it, it's not always work. It's what you're doing. It's what you enjoy.
So you have to love what you're doing. That's the key to it in itself. You love
absolutely.
what you're doing because you say, hey, I would do this even if I wasn't being paid for it. It's good.
That is correct.
And there's so many people out here who have no idea, no concept of what it means to be passionate about something other than a person. They want to be passionate about a person, but not necessarily a product. And the greatest product you should have passion for is you.
That's correct.
You're the greatest product.
Absolutely.
You guys agree with that then?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the best way of going about promoting myself then? Because I know you're saying branding. You mentioned branding. So how do we go about the branding process?
Easy. You got to look at what your market is. It always starts with someone's market, whether it be the car lot, whether it be the mom and pop ice cream store, and that's the direction you got to approach your market at. And that if it's the ice cream store, it's kids and parents. That's where you got to go to get them. If it's the adult car lot, funeral homes, you got to go after the mom and dad, the decision maker. Women make a lot of decisions when it comes to funerals. So that's your market. Where you gonna catch that market? Church. Where you gonna? Who's your market? If you have an ice cream shop at the corner store, kids and moms, schools. It's so that's where you got to target at. You got to know who you are. Most people have businesses. You got to research. Same thing. You got to constantly be researching. If you're not researching, you're trying. But if you really want to be passionate about it and you want to be successful, you got to read about what you're doing. If find somebody else. There's companies that bring me in that's been around 70 years because I've been in the market so long. They know I know. So you bring in somebody if you don't know. The internet's a beautiful thing right now. You can research anything. Mm-hmm. You can find information anywhere on the internet.
But you're saying to us all that it's going to require you to do more than sit around waiting on success to come to you,
That's
right?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you're saying I must invest me into what I'm doing.
Yeah. On that note, when you're looking at products that you're selling, whatever it is, we're all selling somebody somewhere somehow. And that's just life. Mm-hmm. Whether you're selling your wife to get that car you want, whether it's to convince your 9-year-old to read a book that's going to help him this summer, you're selling all the time.
Now the thing is, and that's going to pull you back in, Horace, in a moment, because the thing is, with that being done and said, most people don't want to get involved or invest in anything because we feel the greatest hindrance to us is money. Mm-hmm. I don't have the finance to do that. Yeah. So what are some of the preparatory things that we need to do in lieu of obtaining the finances first? Because we don't necessarily need the finances first, right?
No. First, you need a feasibility study. And the perfect example...
Hear you saying things again. What do you mean feasibility study?
A feasibility study is something that you want to see whether or not, let's say, and I'll give you the good example of that. There was this guy that wanted to open a hot dog place in Chardon. And it was on Cherry Street, and I don't know if you know where Cherry Street is, but there was absolutely no parking. So I did the feasibility study, and I told him that I didn't think it was a good idea to put it there, and that he should either, if he's going to do it, number one, he should look for another place. Number two, hot dog stores do not work well in the wintertime. So, he had to be prepared to close down from say November to April and then open back up again. And he needed the capital to do that. So my study showed that he shouldn't have been there, but he did it anyway. And then he went out of business. So because he couldn't bring in enough business, there was only room for 4 cars in his parking lot. And that was one of the reasons why I told him it wouldn't work. Okay, so he did it anyway, and then he had some people that pulled in behind the cars that were there, and the people that were coming out couldn't get out, and it created a problem where they were arguing and things like that. So the feasibility study shows them where the whether or not it's going to be good for a location or if it's going to be good at all. And then once you do that study and you put the numbers together and you can take that into the bank and show them, then you pretty much know how much money you're going to need. So you go into the bank and you say, okay, I'm going to need $50,000. And the bank said, well, that's too much money. We'll give you 15. Well, automatically you're destined to fail because you're missing 35,000 of what the study showed you. So what you want to do is, number one, if you're going to take the 15, then you got to figure out how you're going to get that 35, that other 35 that you know you need. And then once you do that, I tell people to go look for investors. And look for the investors before you take the money from the bank. You know, if they say we're going to give you 15, you say, okay, put that on hold. Let me see if I can get some investors to put in money to do this business. And if you find the investors, then take the 15. And you can give them, the investors, either a piece of the company, but never more than 49%, because you still want to make all the major decisions. Okay? And you tell the investors, I'll give you a piece, or I'll give you dividends based on the profit that we make from the business. And without that feasibility study, you can put yourself in hot water real fast.
So feasibility really comes down to how much sense does it make to do this?
Right.
So if you want to look at it, feasibility, stop, evaluate.
Right.
You have to do that evaluation. And we want to look at it again, what you said about people who, when they go to the banks aren't your friend.
No.
They're not there to be your friend. They're there to make money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you go into the bank, you have to go in prepared mentally and emotionally to be let down, because 9 times out of 10, now I'm not certain, that say 9 times out of 10, they're not going to give you what you come in looking for.
Well, the problem is that the bank looks at it and says, how much money are we willing to lose on this guy? You know, are we going to lose 50, or are we willing to lose 15? So that's what they're looking at. And you have to realize that they have a certain budget for how much in losses that they can take or, absorb every year. So you want to go in there with the ideal. If they tell you they're going to give you 15 on a $50,000 ask, then you just say no.
So it comes back down to what you've been saying all along, then that's setting up for failure. let's be honest too, as black people, some of us want to be in business so desperately bad,
Right.
that we'll take that hand out, not a hand up.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do to offset that?
Sweat equity. You got to put something in it. It's yourself. If you're not grinding to make something happen, then you're really not trying. If you want to work weekends to make it happen, if you can't employ somebody to help you with that job or with that career or with that business, you got to be the other equity of the business. That's why it all comes down to what you love, what you like, and what you're doing. Because if you love it and you like it, you have something in it.
Yeah. I read a book some years and years ago by Marcia Senator, and it's called "Do What You Love, the Money Will Follow."
That's correct.
And what you're saying, that we are not used to putting sweat equity in anything.
Right.
We want that quick result, instant result, and we don't want to lose sleep at night. We don't want to drive the Volkswagen. We want that Cadillac, or we want that Ferrari, and we know we can't afford it, but we go after it, and we project that illusion of success.
Oh, you can project that illusion, but if you really want it, if you really want that Ferrari, if you really want that big, huge house, you got to use your whole body, your whole soul, and they'll pull it to you. If you're willing to work 7 days a week, take some time off for God on Sunday, but do what you love, that part of the industry, that's part of your business, that's the love of it. And if you, whatever you put out there, the beauty of my life, and this is what I've learned, I've been around professional athletes, from shooting photography to being around the guy, the CEO at KeyBank, the executive that came from nothing to something. And you need to learn from the people around you, which we started with.
Mm-hmm.
And what you put out there, your mind, your body, your soul, the athlete and the CEO, they're the same people. You don't realize it, but when you're around them, they're intense. That CEO, that executive's intense. He's just 5'10", he's just 5'9", but he still has that same intensity, that same drive. He's still putting in those same hours. Like you see these athletes making these incredible plays. You think they woke up and they made those incredible plays? No. They put in the sweat equity of practicing. The CEO put in that sweat equity of learning, studying, doing the research, getting the research, pulling from different areas, looking at where they want to put a business at. It's the same thing, it's just two different arenas. But when it comes down to it, they both come together and they both look the same because they're both successful. You look at all these guys shooting these incredible jump shots. They gave up their time. People don't see that, but when everyone else is sleeping, the Mamba mentality. CEOs were bringing him in. People, that's Kobe Bryant, the Mamba mentality. But that Mamba mentality is the same thing in corporate America. It's who's gonna want it the most? If you're grinding for a company, you're competing against everybody else in that company. If you're grinding for yourself, you can compete against all the people that do the same thing you do. But it's if you want that incredible car, you can get that car.
And if you're working for yourself, one thing you got to realize is that, especially at the start, you got to be willing to take less money than you've been used to living on, because you've got to take that time and put it into the business, and you may not get paid for the time that you put into the business.
That is correct.
You've got to be willing to do that. When I started my computer business, the most I ever pulled out of it in any given month was $1,300 a month, and I was used to living on $3,000 a month at that time. That was in the 80s, and I knew Brother Otis at that time, and we I didn't have a lot of money when I first started it, but as I got going and I built it, then I built it a lot. Then I taught myself custom programming, and then I really made some money. So you've got to be willing to live on less than what you normally, and hopefully if you're pulling money out of the business, that you've put money aside for your dream before you started your business.
Now, there's the other component that you're mentioning, that putting yourself into the business into you, it may take a while.
Right.
See, some people think, okay, I want to be that overnight success. You mentioned Kobe Bryant. You talk about basketball players. They didn't get to where they are just going out there and looking at the basket, and they had to practice. They had to put something in order to get something out. And what you're saying is, guys, you need to invest in yourself, but doing that is going to cost you something. You can't live high on the hog.
That's correct. That's correct. You got to give it up. You got to give up the crazy spending. You got to put everything into the business. You got to get people in your family. If you're married, you got to get them on board. You got to walk them through it. You got to tell them the plan. And that's the most important thing. Everything starts with a plan. You can't go from A to B and C and D without getting to B. So you gotta have a plan. You gotta have your short-term goals equal your long-term goals. Even the CEOs, they're still studying. Even the top executives, they're still breaking down a product. Let's take from my industry, for instance, T-shirts. You know, I grew up, it was either a 50-50 or 100%. Now you can get a T-shirt, blend, soft, different cut. It's it's paper thin, but it's in and it's trendy and it costs more than a 6.1 ounce. But you gotta constantly be studying when you have a business, whether it's the computers, whether it's the mom and pop, whether it be the car. You gotta know what you do, like you know everything about it.
Well, you mentioned the fact that it's ongoing learning. It's a learning process on a regular basis. The smartest people are the people who realize they're not that smart.
Right, and you got to be willing to learn. I did a tax return for a lady in Boston this year, and she gave me her W-2. She made $64,000, and there was no taxes taken out of it. And she told me, she says, "Hey, Horace," she says, "I don't have to pay taxes." I said, "Well, I've never heard of that." And she says, "Oh, well, here's the publication on that." And she gave it to me. And I take continuing education every year, but we've never gone over that. So I looked at her tax return. She gave me the publication. I looked at the publication. I didn't know there was a law that existed where she didn't have to pay taxes, but there was. As long as she was taking care of her father, and the money was coming to her to take care of her father, she didn't have to pay taxes on it, and there's a law for that. And I didn't know that. And I've been doing taxes since 1973, and I didn't know it, but I know it now.
But see, go right in.
On that same note,
Yeah.
you gotta hire people, even if you gotta take less money. You gotta hire people that know more than you about a certain industry.
Right.
I do certain jobs. I pay somebody else to do those jobs for me. I don't have time to do every single thing. That's why you have employees. You take less on a job that somebody knows more about, and it's a very, very successful job.
It's always a good thing to find out what you didn't know. too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You go, wow, I'm doing this for this long. What do you mean you don't have to pay this? Yes, you do. But when you research, and there again, going back to your feasibility study as well, when
Right.
you research and find out certain things, does it make sense to do that? And do I know what I think I know about the industry? You mentioned also, Bill, about the T-shirts, and there's hundreds of T-shirts out there.
Correct. There is now.
And what people say, well, why would you want to do T-shirts when everyone out there is doing T-shirts? Because I'm not doing the T-shirts. That's not my brand of T-shirts. When you believe in you as the brand, and you brand you develop you're passionate about you're passionate about what you're doing. Family members, if they aren't initially on board, you find slowly some of them begin to pay attention to what you're doing, because it's like, you know what, he's a fruitcake, he's a nutcase, but
It's working.
it's working. He believes in what he's doing. He's accomplishing something that we didn't think could be done.
Right.
See, when people finally buy into the vision, and going back to something else you said, and that's the planning process. We don't plan. See, most of us don't plan to fail, we just fail to plan.
Right.
Correct.
And if we learn that, we'll do better at that. And it's always good to get with somebody who, as you mentioned too, both of you mentioned it, know more than you do.
Right.
Correct.
The greatest thing for us to be is humble. Because when you're humble, you can learn. It's that pride that gets in the way that prevents our learning.
Absolutely.
When you looked at that information, nope, it's got to be wrong. But then when you humble yourself and you start researching, you realize, no, I was wrong.
Absolutely.
That's business.
And you have to admit that to yourself. There's so many things that, as old as I am, and I'm not going to say on the air, but as old as I am, I'm still learning.
But that's good. I like that you said that, because for those out there who are watching and listening, you have this thinking, you're thinking in your head, old dog, new tricks.
Right.
You can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can teach anybody anything when they're willing to learn it.
And if you go to my website, hwspivey.com, there's stuff that I didn't know that I know now that I put on my website. You can look it up. I have videos on my website, hwspivey.com, and it'll show you a lot of the things that we're talking about here today.
And I like that you did that because ultimately I wanted to ask you guys to do that anyway, so people can find out a little bit more about you, know what you are doing, why you are doing it, and as you said, from 73, and how long you've been doing it.
Right.
So with that, let's go to the impetus of this then. What got you into the business of, I want to learn the financial aspect? What drove you to that? Because there had to be a passion to do it as long as you're doing it, apart from the computers and everything else. So what drew you to that?
Actually, I did the accounting. I graduated from Dyke College in '73, and I did the accounting from '73 to '80. Then I was working for Fisher Foods, and I don't know if I should have mentioned that on the air, but I had a position there as the supervisor of accounting, and then I went to the manager of accounting. And there was a program that I wanted the programmers in IT to make for me, and they kept putting me off, and it was going to make my job easier. So I went and I bought a book on Pascal programming because that's what our system operated on, and I read it, taught myself how to do it. In 2 days, I made the program that I had been asking them for months, and I was able to shorten the time that I would be working there every night, and I got promoted from supervisor to manager. And at that point, I told my boss, who was the controller of the company, and I said, they kept telling me it was going to take too much time away from them to do other things. I don't know anything about programming. I just wrote this. And so he called them in, called their boss in. One of them got fired for saying it was going to take too long. If I could do it and know nothing about programming, then he felt that they should have been able to do it probably in half a day. So once that happened, then I started looking more into computers and software and hardware and learning how to do that. I never went to school for it, but I taught myself everything. And at a certain point in 94, I think it was, I was able to command $125 an hour just for writing software. And so I did that, and then when the Y2K came, I was really busy and I was really making a lot of money. So it went well until 9/11, and at that time things started drying up for me. So I was going, what can I do that I know how to do? And I came back to the accounting, and I went back to school, got my master's, and then I started the accounting business and tax business, and I had always been doing taxes, but not doing full accounting. So now I do accounting, payroll, the taxes. I do receivables and factoring, turning people on to factoring companies. And for those that don't know what a factoring company is a company that you may have a bunch of receivables and people aren't paying you. You can sell your receivables to a factoring company and they'll give you 80% of the money. And then if they collect it, they'll give you probably another 10%. And then they keep 10%. So if you get 90% on your receivables, that's like gold compared to not getting anything. So
it's good for people to know who Horace Spivey is, and you can get with him. I'm sure he'll give the information before everything's over today.
HWSpivey.com.
So you can get with him, and if you get with him, all this information he's imparting now, you can eat some of that resource up later. And Bill, where you come from with your vision?
Yeah. That's the perfect way how he described starting a company and a business. Work for a company that's doing what you want to do. If you love it, you figure out what they're doing right, and you can talk to them, and they'll teach you how to do it.
If they know it, because they didn't know it when they were here. It's like, he figured it out himself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but when you work for a company, I work for a promotional products company, and that's what, in my industry, finding all the product is king. If you can't find the product, you can't get the product.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line. And that's the quickest way to go out of business, not being able to find the major companies' products. But once you learn that, you got to know what you do well. I can sell. It's always be closing, ABC. That's what I do. The little yeses equal the big yes. And getting somebody to talk about what they like about it. You like that color? Yes. You like that the way that works for you? Will this help you? Yes. Well, let's get this started right now. Let's get this going right now. Then you get, and then they automatically say yes.
Horace, you look like you're ready to jump in there real quick. So go ahead.
The one thing I learned when I was in the computer business is knowing when to close, and he's touched on that a little bit. But sometimes, the person is ready to buy, and you're still talking.
Yeah.
And so you have to know when to close, and they might give you some small signs, and or you see them smile when you said something, and then you can just say, "Are you ready for me to write this up?"
Yeah. That's correct. That's correct.
So you gotta know. You have to know when to close. Never talk past the close.
Yeah.
And he hit on that. ABC.
Always be closing.
Right.
Now, with that being said, too, that's something that has to be taught to some people because they don't know.
Right.
And let's be clear about it. They don't know when to shut up.
Right.
That's correct.
So there's a time that you need to just simply, okay, if that smile, and that head nodding, if they're sitting forward rather than sitting back, all those are key indicators. So you have to learn to read people.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And in order to be a people person, you have to read people.
Absolutely. And you do it by their body language. When you lean forward, you're engaging them, watching how they're looking at you, how they're interacting to the questions that you're asking. So you got to ask the right questions to get the right answer. When you look at what you're there to do, sometimes what we're talking about, talking yourself out of a sale, you shut up. Simple as that. You shut up. And then your next words after the pause, let's get this started so you can get this in your hands now.
Right.
The beauty of business, too, when it comes down to selling and closing, again, I'm going to tell this probably 100 times. I don't care what you do. If you can't sell it, you can't do it. That's the bottom line. That's the most important entity of a company.
Absolutely. So I took a sales class, and I learned a lot from it when I was in the computer business. And in the sales class, the instructor says you got to get them through the front door first thing, then you get them into the vestibule, then you offer them a seat in the living room, and then when you take them into the kitchen to give them something to eat, then it's time to close.
On that same note, whatever you're selling, you're constantly, whatever you put on that morning and you go see a customer, that's where it starts.
Right.
But your mindset when you wake up, that's when it starts. You're not going to close somebody unless you believe you can close them. That's as simple as it. Just like that athlete's taking that shot, he's taken 1,000 times the night before. The same thing. You need to have a rhythm of what you're talking. You need to be constantly working at getting better. Whether it be the clothes that you put on, whether it be the look, whether it be the products that you're going to bring, you got to put together something. You got to show up.
That's the plan.
Yeah, you got to show up with the right materials. If it's a portfolio of a book you can turn in front of them, that engages them. Anything that you can do to engage the customer, the client. Like I sell clothes, I love clothes. You guys got out of not seeing more promotions, polos and hats today. But the bottom line is the clothes that I'm wearing. If I was dressed bummy, why would you buy from me?
Because the first thing I'm going to buy is you.
Yeah, that's
right.
exactly
I buy
right.
you before I buy anything.
Yeah, that's
you
correct.
say.
That's
Right.
correct.
And we're visual people anyway.
Yeah.
You came in, first thing you comment on my haircut. You're like,
correct.
okay, I'm checking you out.
Yeah.
And we do that. We tend to check one another out.
That's correct.
And after I get that first glance, then I want to see if you're articulate. Do you know how to speak? Because you can't sell me something if you
That
don't
is
know how
correct.
you busy. Man, you just don't. Man, you know what I'm saying.
That's correct.
If you're not articulate, if you can't explain it, why should I buy it?
Right.
You can't sell it.
You said always be closing, right?
That's correct.
So how am I closing when I don't even know what's open?
On that same note too, you got to research what that product is. I'll sell everything from the rugs, the mats that you walk across, to the corporate apparel, to the signage. I don't know all that stuff, so I talk to the people.
Who do?
Exactly. Oh, and then you bring in the expertise.
Yes.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. Oh, I'm gonna show up with XYZ. Whether it be I do printing. I'm not the one really printing that stuff, but I do printing. I'm gonna bring in an expert when the job is.
Requires that.
That's correct.
You bring that person.
That is correct.
And it makes you
Yeah.
look good
Yeah.
because, again, that's humility because you're not trying to convey to people, I know everything. That's why I brought this army with me.
Yeah.
This army of people who can explain it, but I'm learning as they're explaining it.
Yeah.
So I'll know better the next time how to do certain things.
Absolutely.
And what that saying is, learn to stay in your lane.
Yeah.
So many of us, even in business, tend to get out of our lanes.
Yeah. Like, I know my lane is not the accounting, not the bookkeeping. I do sales. That's who I am. I sell every day, all day, and I pay somebody to do things I can't do.
Well, I do sell my business, and I have it on the internet, but I got overwhelmed because I got a lot of business this year, and it's been great. But I had to finally bring another accountant in that's a CPA, and he's been, a godsend because he was available. So he's there now in the office and doing some things for me. So I brought him in, and if we get more business, then I'll bring another person in. But I didn't want to bring somebody in and not be able to pay them when I could do all the work
Absolutely.
myself. And that's what we're talking about, sweat equity. You need to know almost everything that your business runs with as far as your specialty. You need to know how to do all of that before you can bring somebody in and that's going to help you and teach them. And it doesn't mean that you can walk away from your business and just say, okay, you guys do that. I'm going to go on a 3-month vacation. That's not going to happen. Especially if you're in business for yourself. You might be able to take a week or two, but you're not going to be able to go away for 3 months or just stay at home and think your business is going to run itself. Because if you stay at home thinking your business is going to run itself, next thing you're going to know, you're going to say, oh, wait a minute, how come I don't have any money in the bank? And the next thing you know, you've given a person, by not being there, the opportunity to steal from you. And that happened to me. So you don't want that to happen to you. I'm saying that as a warning to anybody that's ready to start a business on their own and thinking they can be a big shot and say, oh, I own my own business. And you're out drinking with the boys while your business is slowly going down the tunnel.
Correct.
So.
Yeah. You got to constantly look at your accounting.
Yeah.
Got to constantly look at your bank statements. The beauty of this day and age today, you can get on your computer and you can monitor all your finances. And if you own a business, if you go out and you get those sales and you get those orders, the least you can do, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes a day, is hit some buttons on your computer and look at your finances and look at where your money's going.
And if you do decide to put somebody in charge of your money and put them as a signer on your banking account, you bond them. Because if you don't bond them, the bonding company, any money that they find that you lost because of them, the bonding company gives you your money back. And then they got to worry about the bonding company because the bonding company is going after them. So you want to make sure that if you give somebody that responsibility, that you bond them, and the bond is usually only about $500-600, and it's well worth that $500 or $600.
So some of what you're saying, both of you are saying too, it's going to cost some money, even if you don't have any money.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's why you save. You put a little bit of money when you get orders. You put a little bit of money aside, and then when you need it, that's what you use it for.
But see, then we still want that instant success because it's supposed to just happen. I've listened to Bill Moore and I've listened to Horace Spivey and I've listened to all these guys. They had these businesses, and we don't know how long you've been in business. We just know that you're in business. And when you say it's profitable, we don't think about what it took to become profitable.
Right.
The end result is, I want to have what they have, but I don't want to have to do what they did.
Yeah, but that's a good point. Not everybody's willing to pay that price. If you're looking to start your own business, you got to look at the price that you're willing to pay. If you're not willing to work 6 days a week, chances are you don't need to be starting your As simple as that. We just in my lifetime, the most difficult thing I had to do was survive COVID-19. Think about it. I sell promotional products. No one's buying shirts. The state's closing down. Mm-hmm. You got to have your antennas up. If you want to survive, you got to have your antennas up. You need to be listening. You got to have a tight-knit group of people you can talk to, you can learn from, get an idea from. Because guess what? If you don't get that idea to survive it, you're done. Simple as that. You're done. Most companies that do what I do, maybe half at best survive COVID-19. Simple as that. Half. I'm blessed to have some great people around me. When I started this, I talked about having a network of people. I was blessed enough to talk to them and come up with some ideas. I pivoted. No one's buying t-shirts, polos, companies aren't opening. What were people buying? Medical equipment. Sometimes you got to take a chance. But then you got to check yourself. You got to constantly check yourself because you're in a whole new arena. Mm-hmm. So I was selling face masks, hand sanitizers, and you got to constantly make it happen. But sometimes you might rush to something to make it happen, but then you go back and you check yourself. I bought some stuff online. Thank God mine was okay. But the first thing I did was look at the company and what else they had. What else did they do? And that's when I realized they were legit. Some people rushed and bought stuff overseas from in a foreign country. Their stuff never got there, and they never got their money back. Yeah.
Well, in my case, I was blessed. I was truly blessed by God because my business increased during COVID. And I didn't go out to find the increase. The increase came to me. So that's why I feel that I was truly blessed by God with my business. And I wasn't worried about the biggest thing. I had a quadruple bypass last year. And while I was in the hospital, my business was continuing to increase. And so when I got out, they told me not to go to work, but I worked from home. And I was able to, since I was just sitting there anyway, I could keep up. And I was able to do that. And this year it increased more, and that's when I had to hire somebody to help me out. So I've been blessed, and I didn't have to worry about COVID. I'm thankful for that.
It's good that the Lord can open doors like that. And you think, I don't know what I'm going to do. And the Lord said, no, I got this. Don't even worry about it.
Right.
I'm taking care of it. Yeah. And the same with Bill, what you're saying, that's adapting. You have to adapt and make adjustments. Because if you don't, it's a sink or swim. Yeah. And it's your choice, right? It's up to you to make that decision. And a lot of people who may be watching this program will think and say, well, you know what, I can't do that. I can't do that. Why would you take the thought that I can't do something rather than I can do it? You're hearing from people today, two gentlemen today, who's saying that you can do it, but in order to do it, you're going to have to count the cost. Yeah. It can't be what's in it for me only.
That's correct.
It can't be what's in it for me, but I need to be in it if we're going to be successful, right?
That's correct. That's correct. And you got to give back too. You got to have some type of give back. Do I have the time to come on the show today? No. I got some serious things going on. But I want to make my place, my world, a better place. Simple as that. What you put out, you get back. And just like God blessed us to get through COVID-19, I want to bless somebody else to see the footsteps, the prints, how to put your foot in front of the other and get a business. What they have in store to get what they want in life and what it's going to take. There's some great books out there. You can learn. There's a bunch of good positive stuff out there. If you're a woman, I know sometimes women want to read about other women, but whatever you want and whatever you want to learn from, it's out there. There's a guy that had a military background. He became a Navy SEAL. I went to see this guy speak. I mean, this dude had the worst upbringing you can ever have, but the why factor. He said, and before I saw this guy, the why factor, that's the only factor I ever knew, why I'm going to do it, why I'm going to put forth that effort. He had a whole new approach. It's past the why. Who's willing to go past the why? I mean, that's just reality, though. That's just reality of what you're willing to do to deep down inside to get through COVID-19 and to make a company work.
We have to challenge ourselves.
Yeah,
that's what it
absolutely.
comes down to.
Yeah.
You have to challenge yourself to be better or be bitter.
Yeah.
And, we could either go out and simply say, I'm going to be looking for blessings, or I'm going to be the blessing.
That's correct.
You mentioned the giving back. That's how we give back.
Yeah.
We give back when we realize that none of this that we have belongs to us anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So once we learn that it doesn't belong to us, and the other thing that we have to learn is this: we're all born dying.
That's true.
We're not keeping anything.
Yeah.
Since you're not keeping it, what are you doing with it? How are you dispersing some of what you have? How do you give back? How are you helping someone else to become better? As you said, I didn't have time to do this program, but the time was there to help somebody.
Absolutely.
And that's why you're here. You're here to help somebody else.
Yeah.
We're running a marathon, not a sprint, right?
That's correct.
I'm handing off the baton. You're handing the baton to somebody through this program and through our lives. Make sure that you find somebody to hand the baton to. You have a website that they can go to, because I know you've mentioned your website. You have a website.
EastPhillySpivey.com.
See, I just point at him, it comes out.
Yeah. You go to my website. It's morpromo.com. morpromo.com.
And they can find out a lot about you on that,
Absolutely.
on your website,
Yeah.
which is good. And again, I wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on the fact that you're simply saying, hey, you in a genre, you went into an area that a lot of people are in,
Yeah.
but you seem to be making it. Why?
You got to set yourself apart from everybody else, the rest. You got to, like, short line deadlines. Deliver something this morning. I just got it last week. But when you're looking at short line deadlines, most people can't do that. Full color. I can take a photograph and make it come to life on a t-shirt. Now I can make that photograph come to life and you don't have to buy 100 of them. I'm constantly looking at better. You got to look at yourself and look at your industry and make yourself better. COVID-19 again. If you didn't learn something when you had downtime, personally me, I took a part on myself to get better. Every single thing I want to get better at, my diction. I worked on my diction, how I pronounce my words. That's how I relay a message to somebody. That's how I sell. That's a big part of me.
Has to be. You say, what did you say? ABC. Always be closing. So if you're always in the closing, you have to always be able to articulate. And less is more at times. You don't have to say much to be understood. That's where you have to reel it in sometimes, because no, you don't have to do that. I've already bought what you have to sell. Now, only thing you doing, maybe you're going to miss some sales because you're overselling.
Even saying my website, it's simple, morpromo.com. Back in the day, it used to be 1,000 letters. Can't be that way, but you got to constantly upgrade. I didn't start where I'm at right now. I used to have a Yahoo. I used to have a number one. But you got to take negative and make them to be successful, because we all going to have some negative. You got to take negative and make it positive.
That goes back to that PMA, that positive mental attitude.
Oh, absolutely.
And W. Clement Stone said, if you believe it, you can achieve it.
Oh, absolutely.
So what we have to get people to do is understand that you are worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
If we get them to understand that they're worth it, because so many of our young people particularly don't feel that they're worth it, and so many of our older people get stuck in their ways. As you mentioned that earlier, it's like, I don't want to hear it. There has to be a give and take. As I'm getting older, I'm supposed to be getting wiser.
Yeah.
And these are younger people who are hungering to know what to do, but we oftentimes that we exclude ourselves from that teachability. We need to be able to teach them, but in order to teach them, we have to be available.
And sometimes there's that jealousy factor where people will try and say, Mr. Morris, he's not going to make it in that business. And they try to just downgrade him at every chance that they get, because they're jealous of what you've built and how you built it. And maybe they don't have as nice a car as you or as nice a house. And so they're still jealous about you. So you can never, ever let that seep into your head. Because if you do, then, then you'll start believing it because they're saying it. And when someone says that about me, I just look at them and smile.
Man, the one thing about life, you can take a negative and make it a positive. The negative energy that somebody's bringing at you, it's like the wind that lifts you up and makes you go higher.
We have to see it's hard to get us to understand that, but it takes people who've been there to help people get there.
Yeah.
See, a lot of our young people have no understanding of what it takes to get where you're at. So that means there's a teachable moments. How do I get them there? How do I get them to understand that you're worth it and what you're doing, your vision? It may not be my vision, but it's a vision. The Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish.
That's correct.
So how do we get them to understand your vision is worth the time that you're willing to invest in that in a positive mode? The negative stuff is going to come. We know that. But how can I take that negative and make it a positive? First, I have to change my mind about me.
Yeah. Some people feed off of that. I hate to say it, I feed off of negativity. I hate to say it, it makes me, when I don't want to work, there's a bunch of people out there that would love for me not to succeed.
Exactly.
If I sit at home and I don't work on meeting my deadlines, and they're not ordering from me again, that makes them happy. Unfortunately, that's just me. But you got to grow. You got to constantly grow. That young person needs to understand they got to write down a plan. Again, they got to have a roadmap. They got to, that roadmap, if the money equals, let's say $1 million, there's companies that do, that's another thing. You got to look at the size of the company that you want to be. You can't do it. Most people don't do $1 million in their first year. But you got to, over time, let's say how you going to get to that $1 million. So you got to say, I need to do X, Y, Z a month for a year. But before I do that $1 million, I got to set it back to 250 that 1 year.
Scale it back.
And then, yep. And then the next year, 450 the next year. And then before you know it, your mind, your ideas are pulling you down that path. And you're going to have to say no to some things. Right. This is the hardest thing it took me to get over. The hardest part to move forward, sometimes you got to let some things go.
That's it.
And most people, that's the hardest thing. Sometimes you got to walk away. It's not worth it. And most people, man, it might have taken me 20-something years to realize this. But you gotta let it go. That company might be giving you $20,000 worth of business, and if it's not good for you, it's not good for your company.
Right. We got about 2 minutes left. So what do you have, Mr. Spivey? Almost the last
sorry,
closing word. No, that's okay. See, that's what we need.
Yeah, a lot of times people will look at your company and say it's not going to work, but he talked about it earlier in the program about who you're hanging around with. And the biggest deal that I ever had was with some people that I met in Erie, Pennsylvania, that gave me a $1.4 million deal with Sears. And I installed all the Sears dental centers along the East Coast. I put their computers in. And I hired 17 people to help me out with that because I knew I couldn't do that deal on my own. And at the time, I only had like 2 employees, and I went from 2 to 17 in order to do the deal. But that's from networking and hanging out with the right people, and they're not always going to be black. But you have to have those people around you and make friends with them, and they will turn you on to business that you've never had before.
All right, so we're about to close, and our closing moments, I want to tell you my life's formula, and I'll talk about it oftentimes, is I plus A equals T. That's information plus application equals transformation. It's on us to do better and not be bitter. Thank you for joining us this week on Unlocking the Power of You, and see you on next week from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Signing off until then.